I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been.
Who is the GOAT?
If you're a sports fan of any kind, that conversation has more than likely come up. Arguing stats and accomplishments, trying to convince your friends of the truth.
Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up to the layup, oh, blocked by James!
Out of every single sport, every human competition, who is the greatest to ever do it?
Ohtani's ready. Trout's ready. 3-2. He struck him out! Ohtani strikes out Trout, and Japan's back on top of the baseball world.
The topic of the GOAT is usually most heated and contentious around players of the most popular sports. For example, in football, you can get entire countries up in arms about whether or not Messi or Ronaldo is the GOAT. Now, as an American, I only watch this sport every 4 years, so I have to say I think Messi helping Argentina to win the 2022 World Cup was pretty impressive and sticks fresh in my mind. And a quick Google search says Ronaldo never won one. So that's that. End of discussion. Obviously, there's a lot more to the conversation. The World Cup is not the end-all and be-all of a career. Messi has 8 Ballon d'Or, and Ronaldo has 5, though he was nominated an astounding 18 times. Ronaldo is the all-time leader in goals, but Messi started his career almost 2 years later, and is second. So if you calculate their goals per year, it's actually extremely even. So, it's contentious. Which one of them is actually the best? You're never going to convince anyone who the true GOAT is. Unless something drastically changes for these two towards the end of their extremely long and illustrious careers, we won't be able to say definitively who the GOAT is. So we need to move on.
Special teams, special plays, special players. That's what I like to do.
And as much as it pains me to say this as a New York Jets fan, the GOAT is Tom Brady. It's pretty straightforward, honestly. There are 2 teams that tie the record for most ever Super Bowl wins, the Patriots and the Steelers with 6 wins apiece. Tom Brady has 7. You can look up any single stat for a quarterback, and chances are Tom Brady is in the lead. And it's not just because of how good he was, it's because of how long he was good too. Tom Brady is like combining longevity and results and consistency into one unstoppable force. The man dominated the game like no other. He played in 13 AFC championships in 17 years and won 9 of them. People might have believed that Brady did it all at the hands of his Patriots coach, Bill Belichick. Tom Brady retired for a year and then joined the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to immediately take them to the Super Bowl in 2021.
Play action. Looking. Third option. End zone. Caught! Gronkowski!
Where they destroyed the Kansas City Chiefs for one last Brady win, when he was already 43. So there's really no debate for most fans of the game. Recent years have seen people try to peddle Patrick Mahomes, but I think that conversation is well over now. To be clear, I think the debate is settled completely, but one quarterback had a season so crazy it's worth mentioning at least.
If you asked any defensive coach in the history of the game, they'd list Peyton Manning and that offense as the one they'd want to face the least.
Going deep, oh, and he's got Thomas! Goodbye, touchdown! 63 yards, Peyton Manning. It's the all-time highest scoring offense in the history of pro football.
Not only did he break Tom Brady's single-season passing touchdown record by 5, which is insane, he broke the total passing yards record set by Drew Brees by 1 yard. Without a doubt the best season for a quarterback ever, which is why when Peyton's Denver Broncos, the number 1 ranked offense in the NFL, went to the Super Bowl against the Seattle Seahawks, the world was shocked.
It's snapped over the head of Peyton Manning. Now 3rd down and 7. They're coming after Manning. Pass is too high and picked by Chancellor. Manning gets hit. Ball up for grabs. Picked off by Smith. Malcolm Smith. All alone. Good kick by Prater on a hop. It's Harvin, but now he takes off.
See, the quarterback is only one side of the equation. You can be hot off the best season ever, but if your defense lets up 44 points, it's not going to be pretty. Enter the actual greatest defense ever assembled, featuring not just an amazing starting 7, but the infamous Legion of Boom that made up Seattle's secondary. Shutting down a team that hadn't scored less than 20 points all season a team that had dominated the field defensively. It's arguable that the 1985 Chicago Bears are the best defense on paper, with an impressively low 12.1 points allowed per game. But put the 2013 Seahawks defense in the 1985 season, and they probably would never have allowed a single point. So, the GOAT of defense, the other half of the game, is this 2013 Seattle Seahawks. Yeah, it's hard for a player like Brady to be considered a true GOAT because the quarterback can't play defense. In order to find a true GOAT candidate, we have to turn to a game where the carry is even more apparent.
Attitude, like, instead of saying why me, they're saying this is what he want me to do.
Because of the relatively few players each team puts out per game, it allows for certain players to have more control over the outcome. For example, the Denver Nuggets are 12-20 over the last 4 seasons when Nikola Jokic doesn't play at all, but 186 and 107 when he does. And looking at his stats, it shouldn't be surprising why. But as good as Jokic is, he's not in the conversation for the GOAT yet, though he's certainly one of the best players of this generation. Rarely in another sport can you see a player perform at the highest level for so long and just elevate every team he plays on around him. Of course, I'm talking about LeBron James. 21-time All-Star, he's one of the few players to win an NBA championship with 3 separate teams, including going back-to-back with the Miami Heat. All 4 times he won Finals MVP, and without a doubt a title he deserved, and he made 8 consecutive Finals, the most in the modern era. In the 2016 Finals, against the team with the best single-season record in history, he did this.
James fakes, James drives, James finishes. Iguodala ahead to Curry. Shumpert in pursuit, blocked by James. Rick Sterling gets inside, layup blocked by James.
Iguodala with a good push, and James.
Down in the series 3-1, LeBron came to play in Game 5. Along with Kyrie Irving, they both scored 41 points to win the game decisively. And again, in Game 6, LeBron scored 41 points. And in Game 7, with their backs against the wall.
On goal, rebound tip taken by Spades, final seconds. It's over, it's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again.
This is the greatest comeback in NBA history, and no other team in the finals has ever come back from a 3-1 series deficit before. It was almost entirely on the back of LeBron. Not just his scoring, but his superhuman defense as well. His performance in the NBA Finals are genuinely some of the most impressive feats in sports history. Taking multiple teams to the NBA Finals says a lot. And the fact that he's kept up his quality of play for so long also says a lot. Basketball has a stat called win share that they stole from baseball, but we'll get there. It basically tries to calculate an average how many games were won by the player in fractional shares. And LeBron is second all time, accumulating 267 won games on his own. But despite all that, is he actually the GOAT?
At 3:30 this morning, Michael Jordan woke up with flu-like symptoms. I talked to him, I said, how do you feel? He said, I really feel horrible.
Jordan won 6 championships with the Chicago Bulls, and one of the most impressive things about it was that he won 3 in a row, retired to play baseball for a bit, and then came back and won 3 more. He has an absurd 30-point per game average over his 15-year career, and a 33 points average in the playoffs. Both of those are the highest of any player in history. In terms of win share, his average win shares per 48 minutes of play, Michael Jordan was second all time, with an average of .25, meaning every 4 games of his career he contributed a full win to his team. But despite all of that, LeBron completely outshines Jordan in assists and rebounds, which is important to mention. These guys played the game differently and were at different positions throughout their career. It really does become a longevity argument. It's a lot harder to have a better average when you play for longer. LeBron is the all-time points leader in the NBA, both regular season and in the playoffs, and it's unlikely he will ever be overtaken. Jordan is 5th all-time with the fewest years played out of everyone in the top 10. Both have great cases for being considered the GOAT, but we have to move on from basketball. So, who's the GOAT? I'm not going to tell you what to think, but it's not Wilt.
Okay, maybe it is. Wilt Chamberlain is kind of the boogeyman. A story used to shut down GOAT conversations before they can even start. Wilt had a 100-point game. He also had a season where he averaged 50 points per game. Averaged. Throughout the entire season. He won the championship twice, with the 76ers and the Lakers. He has the all-time record for rebounds with over 23,000, despite only playing 14 seasons. If Wilt had quit after his first 7 seasons, his points per game would have been 39.4, by far breaking Michael Jordan's record. But instead he finished out with 30.1, good for second place.
This is due to his average on the Lakers dropping drastically because of his knee injury. So, does 7 years of Wilt dominating in the 60s outdo 15 years of Jordan in the 90s? Or 21 years of LeBron in the 2000s? It's contentious, right? The game has also changed so much over the last 60 years. But I personally think that's why basketball is the most interesting game for this conversation, because of these 3 players. They shaped the entire game around them, and they're each removed from each other entirely. We'll never get to see LeBron versus Jordan or Wilt versus either of them in a head-to-head. So we'll never have a definitive answer on which of these 3 is the best. So we'll have to move on.
Put it up again. Chamberlain slaps it out. That's 7 times Wilt's blocked shots tonight.
It's hard to say early baseball players are the GOATs because the game has just progressed so far past them. Back then, Babe Ruth could just eat 20 hot dogs, drink 10 beers, and go out and play the game of his life. So, who are our candidates? Looking at more recent baseball, there is a rather contentious pick for the GOAT, at least on paper, and that is Barry Bonds. He's the all-time leader in home runs, both career-wide and in a single season, with 762 career bombs, as well as stealing an impressive 514 bases, and receiving an astounding 688 intentional walks. Quite simply, he was built differently, right? But probably the thing he is most famous for is his steroid usage. While he maintains his innocence to this day, he will likely never be inducted into the Hall of Fame due to the mountain of evidence that he used steroids from 2000 to 2007, which happens to coincide with all the years that he broke his records. So it's not really fair to say that he's the GOAT. So let's move on to our only true candidates. And because baseball is heavily split between pitching and hitting, we have to look at lead candidates for both. In baseball today, there are what I would consider the 3 gods of pitching. These players have dominated on the mound for almost 20 years at this point. They account for 9 combined Cy Youngs, pitching's most illustrious award, and combined have pitched over 9,000 innings. And of course, I'm talking about Verlander, Max Scherzer, and Clayton Kershaw. Their dominance over 2 decades of play cannot be understated, and Verlander and Scherzer, who are both 40, just received new multi-million-dollar contracts. But the gods are not created equal, at least in my opinion. And I want to make it pretty clear that Clayton Kershaw is probably the greatest pitcher of all time. He has played his entire career with the Dodgers. He actually just re-signed with them recently. And he has been stable and unstoppable force for them. Over the course of 17 years, he has an absurd 2.5 career ERA as a starting pitcher. ERA is a pitcher's earned run average. Essentially, over every 9 innings pitched, how many runs scored were actually the pitcher's fault. This accounts for errors on the field that aren't the fault of the pitcher. That means, throughout 17 years, pitching 6 innings per game, he let up just a little over a single run per game. I cannot stress enough how incredible that is to do for a few seasons, let alone 17. Verlander and Scherzer, who are also phenomenal, have a career ERA over 3. There are a lot of other stats that can be looked at for pitching, but almost all of them, Kershaw is top 5, and usually only under pitchers from well over 100 years ago. Like literally, this guy's win rate as a pitcher is 70%. Baseball also has a fancy version of the stat called ERA+, which is essentially taking that earned run average and factoring a bunch of other things like the average of the other pitchers in the league at the time, or the ballpark that you're pitching in. And Kershaw is 4th all time. Of the players above him, 2 played in the 1920s, and 1 is Mariano Rivera, who might just be the only other pitcher we should even consider. Over the course of 19 seasons, Rivera was the scariest relief pitcher of all time. He is the all-time leader in saves, aka the guy you'd come in to close a game and stop the opposing team from scoring at all. He pitched just 1,200 innings in that time span, but had a career ERA of 2.21. And in the postseason, Mariano was another beast entirely. In 32 series and 141 innings pitched in the postseason, he let up just 11 runs, for an ERA of 0.7. As great as Kershaw is, his postseason ERA is a miserable 4.49 over 22 series. He doesn't have that clutch gene in him like Rivera did. Obviously, they have different roles as pitchers, and it's kind of impossible to compare the greatest reliever to the greatest starter. So both of them are GOATs in their own right. So what about the modern hitter? Aaron Judge has a lot of buzz nowadays after breaking the American League single season home run record, or as some people say, the non-steroid homer record. He's won MVP twice and has put up 2 of the highest WAR seasons of the 21st century. The guy can ball, but not every season. He's had a bunch of small injuries, and you can see the effect of those in certain seasons. In 9 years, he's hit 315 home runs and accumulated over 50 WAR, but he's not the GOAT. There's another player who is also 32 and beats Judge in almost every single category. Enter Mike Trout. Mike Trout is without a doubt the greatest player of his generation, and unfortunately, we may never see him play in his true prime again. That is because he's had just one season in the last 5 years where he's had more than 100 games played. But before 2020 and his stint of injuries, Trout was an absolute monster. In his first 8 years, he won 3 MVPs, Rookie of the Year, led the league in WAR 5 years straight, accumulating 71.9 WAR in that time span. He hit 280 homers while stealing almost 200 bases and averaging 1.01 OPS. If Trout is able to maintain health and play a few more seasons, there won't even be room to argue it anymore.
I started this video before the baseball season even started, so Mike Trout was off to a hot start. He had 9 home runs in the first month, but his other stats were bad. They weren't looking great. He was averaging 179 behind the plate. His OPS had dropped to 726, which is a low mark he hadn't hit since 2011. Because of this bad start and Aaron Judge's hot start, he's no longer even the top active player in OPS plus, since it's a fluctuating number. Then, to top it all off, he injured his knee and will be out for an undetermined amount of time. So, is Mikey Trout still the GOAT? Or is he washed and these last few years have just tarnished his legacy? I don't know. And to throw a further wrinkle, Aaron Judge is off to the best start maybe ever in a season. He has gone 40 plus games at this point in a row with a hit. He leads the league in home runs again, in batting average. He's batting above 400, which a player hasn't done in over 100 years on a season. So anyways, back to past me, who still had hopes and dreams for Mike Trout's 2025 season.
He already leads all active players in WAR, OPS plus, and is in top 3 in basically every other batting category, and that's with those 5 bad seasons. And again, he's only 32, which is not that old for baseball players. It's hard to think of anyone more deserving of the title, but his former teammate might have a thing or two to say about that. I think it's very likely that by the end of this decade, we will know definitively if Shohei Ohtani is the greatest baseball player of all time.
On a 1-2, Ohtani sends one in the air, the other way, back it goes, gone! One of a kind player, one of a kind season.
On both the mound and in the batter's box, he has been dominant. He has a 3.01 career ERA. In the year he took off from pitching due to injury, he became the first player ever to have 50 home runs and 50 steals in the same season. Almost won the Triple Crown and won MVP for his 3rd time, and carried the Dodgers through the regular season and most of the playoffs to win the World Series. But yeah, it's still a little too early to make the GOAT claim yet for him, so we'll have to see. So overall, I'd say Kershaw and Trout are still my overall picks. They're both sides of the baseball coin, so it's impossible to pick one.
There's one more major team sport to talk about, and honestly I thought it was pretty solved. Wayne Gretzky is the greatest hockey player of all time, right? When he retired in 1999, he had played 20 seasons and put together an unbreakable record of 894 total goals. But his unbreakable record? Well, since 2005, Alex Ovechkin has been a total stud on the ice, playing all 20 of his seasons with the Washington Capitals, who've won their divisions 11 times since, and won their first ever Stanley Cup in 2017, where he was MVP. He's been league MVP 3 times, led the league in goals 9 times. He plays hard and he plays fast, well eclipsing the league record for shots taken on goal. And after surpassing Gordie Howie's mark of 801 in December of 2022, it looked like he was aiming for the impossible. Wayne Gretzky played 1,487 regular season games in his career, and in Alex Ovechkin's 1,487th regular season game.
We're going to try to force it to him if he's open. Here is Ovechkin, shoots, he scores! He scores! Number 895!
For me and anyone else in the city of Washington, Alex Ovechkin is the greatest hockey player who ever lived. But there are some merits to sticking with Gretzky. While Ovi leads in goals, Gretzky has way more points overall due to almost 2,000 career assists, 700 more than the next guy. For Ovechkin naysayers, this is the proof that he was more focused on trying to break the record than also uplifting the team around him. Gretzky's Edmonton Oilers won 4 Stanley Cups, so the rings argument is also in his favor. Some would also say that the fact that he took much fewer shots than Ovechkin on goal and still had that many goals is also a plus. Obviously, total goals is a much flashier title, and I would argue that hockey, like all sports, has only become more and more competitive as the years have gone on. But there's something to be said about how Wayne Gretzky encompassed every aspect of the game like no other. Of course, it's hard to dominate a team sport. Some of the best players of all time can only do so much with the team around them. To find the true GOAT, we need to delve into the realm of individual competition. For some, when they think of the 1v1, the first thing that comes to their mind is fighting. A true test of strength, speed, endurance, and skill. Whether it's boxing or the ever-growing MMA, millions come to the ring to watch two men in brutal fights. Muhammad Ali is known by most as the greatest. It's literally his title. In 61 fights, he won 56, 37 of which by KO. And of his 5 losses, 2 were by controversial split decisions. 2 losses were in showcases that came after he had already retired, including 1 technical knockout, his only of his career, meaning that only Joe Frazier on March 8, 1971 in the fight of the century can truly be said to be the one man to have defeated Muhammad Ali.
If you grew up in the 2000s, chances are you knew Tiger Woods despite knowing nothing about golf. This guy was everywhere. On the news, on cereal boxes, on the cover of every sports and men's magazine. He was the top-ranked golf player for almost all of 1999 to 2010. He won 82 PGA Tours, the most ever, including 15 major championships. When he took an almost decade-long break from golf to deal with issues in his marriage, he came back and won the 2019 Masters, his 5th win and arguably golf's biggest event. There are other players who have seen similar success in the sport, like Sam Snead, who is tied with 82 PGA Tour wins, and of course Jack Nicklaus, who won a staggering 18 majors in the span of 24 years. Not every competition, however, is physical. Some people compete with their intellects instead, and no game in history is more renowned for this than chess. Garry Kasparov spent over 22 years on top of the chess world, holding the top ranking consecutively from 1996 to his retirement in 2006. Kasparov is considered by many to be the greatest chess player of all time, even by the greatest chess player of all time.
Yes.
Garry Kasparov.
Are you allowed to say yourself?
I don't know if I'm allowed, but Garry is the best of all time.
At the age of 13, he managed to draw in his first game against Kasparov in a tournament, and from there his career took off. At age 18, he reached 2800 rating, and then at 19, number 1 in the world for the first time. He has been ranked number 1 in the world for almost 14 years straight now, and has the highest peak rating ever at 2882. He was world champion for 10 years, until he decided not to defend his title in 2023, due to a lack of interest. In a span of 2 years, he once went 125 classical games without being defeated. Not only has he dominated classical chess, but also 2 speed categories, Blitz and Rapid, where he successfully defended his world championship in both, 4 times.
But for some, golf and chess aren't exactly the belle of the ball in terms of human achievement. So for that, we need to look at the traditional, an event that has encapsulated human drive for competitiveness for centuries, the Olympics.
Usain Bolt is without a doubt the fastest man alive, owning the 100 meter and 200 meter world records, both set at the 2009 World Championship in Berlin, along with a relay world record set by the Jamaican team in 2012. He's won 8 Olympic gold medals and 14 total medals in the World Champs. One of the only times he didn't outright win a finals he was in was when he was disqualified for a false start in the 2011 championship. Despite injuries to his hamstring in 2013 and again in 2014, he still won the 200 meter for the 4th consecutive time at the World Championship in 2015, and then got gold at the Olympics in Rio de Janeiro for the 3rd time in a row.
He's coming after him. He's immortal now. Usain's done
2017 was the final year of his career, where he placed third in the 100 meter, marking the first time in 10 years he failed to make gold at a major event. A third hamstring injury during the relay would end Bolt's career definitively. In terms of things that actually matter, Usain Bolt is definitely the second greatest athlete of all time. But there's just one person who during this same time period was just a little bit more dominant. Michael Phelps. His breakout was at the 2004 Athens Olympics, where he won 8 medals, 6 of which were gold. 4 years later, he won 8 out of 8 gold medals at the Beijing Olympics, 5 of which were individual medals, and 4 of those were new world records at the time. He still holds top 3 times in multiple swimming categories. In total, he set 37 world records. Swimming has so many different categories because different swimmers have different strengths, and Phelps could dominate in all of them. For whatever reason, it's really popular to say that Michael Phelps was on steroids or something throughout his career. No, he wasn't. He passed over 9 administered tests during the Beijing Olympics, as well as multiple other tests throughout. I found a recent article from 2024 that claimed his reputation was tarnished by testing positive for DDP in 2008. What's DDP, you ask? A drug that was made up by a satirical Bleacher Report article in 2008 that allegedly turned the user into a dolphin, making fun of the fact that people thought that Phelps was on drugs at the time. The real truth is he didn't need to dope. Between his insane wingspan and his body producing less lactic acid, his body was just naturally created to swim. Now, it's likely people are getting confused because Phelps did take medication for his asthma. This is not unique. There are multiple studies done that the chlorine in the water is linked to higher rates of getting the condition. And 90% of athletes tested for the Olympics between 2002 and 2008 were found positive for salbutamol, a medication that can be used in an inhaler to treat asthma by relaxing your airways. It's completely illegal to use in the Olympics because it doesn't substantially improve an athlete's performance. There are banned asthma drugs, and people are constantly disqualified for accidentally taking the wrong one. While Michael Phelps might have won 8 out of 8 in Beijing, what if I told you there was a competitor who was even more dominant? The sheer absurdity of this man's feats is truly astounding.
He is the champion of now and of always, of north and of south, of the air, of the fire, of the sea, of the land, of the free, Joey Chestnut!
He gained his fame at Nathan's hot dog eating contest in 2007, when he defeated Takeru Kobayashi, who had won the previous 6 times, and he would not relinquish. He won 1, and then another, and then another. Soon he had amassed 8 wins in a row, and then in the 2015 competition, somehow, he lost by 2? Was this the end of an era? Had Joey been dethroned? Of course
Joey
not.
And Jeffrey Bezos, I'm only going to ask once. Bring Joey to the moon with you, man. He's earned it. Chestnut is a true American
He was
treasure.
going to win another 8 in a row after that, setting multiple new world records along the way, until you get to where we are today. 76 hot dogs consumed in just 10 minutes, and 15 out of 16 world championships won. The only thing that could end his reign was Nathan's themselves banning him, because he took a sponsorship with the Impossible Food Company. The winner of the 2024 competition won with the lowest amount since 2010, just 58 hot dogs consumed.
Alright, I wasn't exactly forthcoming in the section on Muhammad Ali, because there is one boxer who genuinely might have had the most impressive performance of any athlete in human history. In 50 professional fights over 20 years, Floyd Mayweather has never lost. 50 wins in a row, retiring completely undefeated in 2015, only coming out for a steamrolling of Conor McGregor in 2017 and a few exhibition matches. 27 of his wins came by KO, and only one of his decision wins was a split decision. That's a level of dominance that is almost impossible to think of. I'm genuinely not sure what level of criticism you could launch at Mayweather. The only thing you could say is that he only fought against people of his time, and that there's no real way to compare his level of dominance to those of the past or the future. Who knows if Mayweather would have actually beaten Ali in his prime, for example, or the boxers of tomorrow in theirs. But for all intents and purposes, Mayweather is the greatest human competitor of all time. But There's one athlete who's just a little bit better, even if they're not human. One whose dominance still looms over competitors to this day, as they try desperately to defeat his reign.
The first 3/4 of a mile in 109 4/5. Secretariat is widening now. He is moving like a tremendous machine. Secretariat.
There's one sport that has remained popular for thousands of years, still drawing in millions of viewers and of course gamblers. While the Kentucky Derby is the most famous of these horse races, Man O' War, an early 1900s racing horse, won an impressive 20-1 races while avoiding the Kentucky entirely. This is due to its owner believing he was too young to race in such a long event. So Man O' War retired on top, but never got the elusive Triple Crown, aka winning the Kentucky Derby, Preakness Stakes, and Belmont Stakes in a single year. The Triple Crown is pretty elusive. Despite the 3 races all existing since 1875, only 3 horses have ever won all of them in a single year. But of all the horses to win, one is so dominant, his legacy still overshadows all the others. Secretariat. Not only did he win the Triple Crown in 1973, but his time in those 3 races still holds up as the official records on all of those tracks, even 50 years later. He won 13 other stakes, and now most of the world's best racing horses have him to thank for their pedigree, as he is an ancestor to many winners, including the most recent Kentucky Derby winner, Sovereignty, and the most recent Triple Crown winner, Justified.
He is going to be the Triple Crown winner. Here comes Secretariat to the wire. An unbelievable, an amazing performance. He hits the finish. 25.
And Bonds hits one high. Hits it deep.
Who is the GOAT?
Cleveland! This is for you!
This video is a way for me to talk about some of humanity's greatest moments of sportsmanship, athleticism, and competition over the last 100+ years. The conversation on who is the GOAT will go on forever, and new GOATs will likely be born and die long after we're all gone. But it's nice to think that some humans that we've shared the planet with are cut above the rest, that those select few will stand the test of eternity and truly be considered the greatest of all time. Thanks for watching.